They finally found a little chapel inside the prison, covered in big cobwebs. Everyone was ready to fight a big-ass spider, but they weren't prepared for what was actually about to happen. Greetings, adventurer! Last time, our heroes fought off a demon familiar and paranormal activities to save the people of Finsterfurt, only to discover that their journey had only just begun. They knew they had to venture into the nearby Dornstein prison in order to protect Leliana, the daughter of their mentor and friend, and to avenge the death of his wife, one of the elder men, because the real culprit still lingered in the ruins of this old prison. This is part 3 of my Legacy campaign series. I try to make every episode interesting from a standalone perspective, without the need to watch everything from the start. You can find the playlist up in the corner if you want to hear the rest of their story though. So, what did our party get themselves into this time? But first, riddle me this. Born by fire, stone or rain, I feel most comfortable at home on the plains. When I'm out of my element, I feel much disarray. What am I? Write your guesses in the comments below, and the first one who finds the right answer will get a shout out in the next video. The solution to last week's riddle is an anchor. The first one who got it right was Makoto X Chihiro Yaoi Fangirl. Congratulations! Now let's see what we got in the chest today. The night before the heroes set off to Dornstein, Callan, the Inquisitor of the group, disappeared without a trace. With all the current events revolving around the mysterious and abandoned prison, the party figured that the Inquisitor might have been abducted and locked away there. This would fit some of the nightmares they had experienced since their arrival in Finsterfurt. Without the help of their Inquisitor friend, the group had to get more information on the undead, and especially on ghosts. So they visited the Church of Finsterfurt to acquire the knowledge needed. There they met a young cleric, eager to assist the group and help his hometown. He introduced himself as Teron and joined the party. Teron is a cleric of the Eternal Rose, the goddess of love, art and music. Together with their new companion, the group traveled along the narrow paths to the plateau in the mountains. But on their way, they witnessed a strange event. Glyphs started to glow and a strange, moist darkness enveloped the group. The party was ambushed by undead, rising from the ground, bearing the mark of the demon they have already fought off in the streets of Finsterfurt. They drew their weapons made of light that were entrusted to them by the ghost of a knight on one of their former adventures, eagerly, though strangely their weapons weren't able to form in this supernatural darkness. So our heroes had to fight off the monsters the old-fashioned way, while Teron showed off his powers to the group, raising his voice in song, praying to the Eternal Rose to vanquish the undead. With the enemies gone, they destroyed the glyphs and the darkness vanished. These runes apparently have been engraved into the stone in days long past. The party wondered what the meaning of all this was, but as they could not come to a conclusion, continued their journey to the old prison. Before they entered the ruined prison, surrounded by thick thorny bushes, the group decided to search for clues in the front court of Dornstein. From floating ghost orbs, glowing eyes in dark corners, and breathing directly in their necks, the group had a constant feeling of being watched and being in danger. The first site the heroes explored was a little, dilapidated house. Even though they feared that the house might collapse during their investigation, they still went together and tried to increase their efficiency by working together. While some of the group found a huge painting of a lady that shockingly looked a lot like Liliana, others encountered something much more horrifying. In front of Koroc stood a lady, the spitting image of Liliana, ghost-like and bloodied, staring at him with lifeless eyes. Wailing in pain and sorrow, the woman couldn't give him any answers, and while the group was occupied with these events, they noticed almost too late that the building started to fall apart. They barely escaped without an injury, and Teron thanked the Eternal Rose for the luck she bestowed upon the heroes. Though the group didn't allow themselves to rest just yet, instead they decided to search for more clues before they would enter the prison itself. When Malve discovered a hole in the wall on the upper levels of the prison, she readily flew up to get a glance on what might await the party when they would enter. But instead of intel, she found her name written in blood on the walls, while she suddenly heard a buzzing noise. A huge mosquito emerged from the hole and charged her. In panic, she flew to her friends to help her fight that creature with its beak as long and pointy as a rapier. After the beast exploded and covered them all in a sticky film of blood, the heroes started being more cautious in the area and decided to stick together from now on to search the last buildings that remained besides the prison, the watchtowers. These crumbling old towers were long abandoned and already looted. The only thing the party could discover in most of them were the remains of vermin. In all except for one. The sudden sound of screeching and small claws echoed through the tower. A wave of dark, filthy fur and glowing eyes came crashing down on the first members of the party that dared to enter. The heroes spread out so that the red swarm couldn't attack them all. They succeeded in minimizing the harm done to them, but all efforts to destroy it at first seemed ineffective. Only through trickery and a lot of running, the group managed to wear down the horde of tiny beasts, while Nymeria was whacking into the flood of enemies like crazy, keeping the swarm distracted. With the danger averted, the group tried to search the tower for things that might have been protected by the swarm. Even though the stairs to the top of the tower were mostly destroyed, Nymeria started climbing to look for clues and information. But the moment she pulled herself up to the platform, a knife nearly missed her fingers. The creature wielding the knife was a small figure with satyr-like traits and spooky equipment. He introduced himself as Jumping Jack and scolded the elf for entering his house without permission. While he acted strangely, Malva and Jack seemed to understand each other, and as it turned out, he was a fae like her, but with a more sinister origin. Malva and Teron thought a conversation was the best way to make friends, despite the fact that Jack killed a lot of people. But he assured them he had a good reason. He only killed those who listened to one of his poems. It was a mere accident that people tend to be in the dark alleyway he chose for his performance. In contrast to the rest of the group, Malva believed him. To the surprise of everyone, even Jack. Surprisingly, Jack was happy to talk to the group after Nymeria asked for forgiveness. Jack told them everything he knew and thought to be important about a strange witch that performed a ritual together with a cultist called Andre here at the prison. This mysterious cultist Andre was definitely an important antagonist, and I surely didn't forget his existence halfway into the adventure. Anyway, with their newly acquired knowledge, the only thing left for the heroes was to venture into the dark dungeon. The doors of the old prison creaked menacingly as the party pushed them open. Malva summoned a handful of tiny dancing fairies to light the way, while Teron made the blade of his glaive glow in the light of the eternal rose. But as soon as the last person had set foot into the foyer, all doors slammed shut behind them. Only a distant, maniacally laughter was audible, and everyone knew that they wouldn't be able to leave unless they banished the evil lurking in that old ruin. All the rooms were old, decayed, with layers of dust covering everything that was left behind. But as expected, the prison seemed livelier than it should. Flying branding irons, shackles, and various other animated objects accompanied by flying skulls tried again and again to restrain or kill the heroes. It really needed some adjustment for the party, as most of the enemies had no obvious weak spots, and just hitting these objects did not seem to do them harm. While they were fighting, they slowly grew tired. Not only that, they grew paranoid and started to suspect an attack from every lifeless object. When they finally found a little chapel inside the prison, covered in big cobwebs, everyone was ready to fight a big-ass spider. But they weren't prepared for Teron becoming possessed by a dead priest and attacking his own friends. Caught by surprise, the possessed cleric was able to impale Malva with his glaive, nearly killing her. But inside, Teron was fighting a battle of will against the raging spirit and managed to break free of its control, all by himself, before he could do any more harm to his companions. Ashamed of himself, he healed the fairy, but she seemed happy and content that it was only an accident and that they were still friends. It was that event that changed the life of the cleric. From now on, he would only use his weapon to protect his loved ones and not to attack or harm others. Together, the heroes searched every room on the first floor, finally finding the first real clues on the events that transpired here. A skeleton of a woman, buried between sheets of linen, turned out to be the remains of Liliana's grandmother, the wife of the prison director. Her ghost appeared in front of them to explain to them what tragedy befell the Dawnstein prison and how she died all those years ago. 3 dangerous prisoners from the lower levels of the building tried to break out of the high security prison, using force and fire. The fire spread quickly and cut off the way out after the destruction of the only lift to the base floor. When she witnessed the fire, she tried to run inside in search of her husband, only to lose consciousness after inhaling too much smoke and dying in the same place that her beloved did. Yet, she's unable to find him anywhere, if only she could be reunited with her love. It turned out that the witch and the cultist performed a ritual to weaken the protective barrier the friendly ghost had established, awakening the ghosts of these dangerous, mighty prisoners, and therefore the angry spirits tried to torture and kill her descendants, weakening her further. The heroes had to find the badge of the prison director, who died in the cellar of the building, and bring it back to her to stop the angry spirits. This token of authority would give her enough power to send them to rest once and for all. But even though the heroes were motivated to find and help, they needed to rest, and so they went to the office of the prison warden, one of the rooms most fit for defense. After a quick search inside the room, Koroc found a safe and immediately tried to lockpick his way to the treasure. Sadly, the lock was of exceptional quality, and therefore he had to take a ton of time to be successful, while the rest of the party rested. While the heroes tried to enjoy their rest in this eerie building, their weapons began to hum and glow. As they moved their weapons closer together, a bright light emanated from them, and a figure made of light appeared before them. As some of you might have already recognized, the adventure we played was based on the Pathfinder adventure path, the Carrion Crown, but heavily modified to fit into my setting. Or maybe you have already watched the other parts of the Legacy campaign. If you haven't already, subscribe and ring the bell to get advantage on never missing out on new videos of mine. Most of the artworks in this video, besides the map, were made by the magical Malva Morgenthau. Check out her other art, you find the links down in the doobly-doo. Lastly, a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters for helping me on my journey. Your support means a lot to me. Thank you all for sticking with me till the end. Your Dungeon Master for this video was Koroc DM, and I hope you join me in the next one.